Alrighty, welcome everyone to today's live digital marketing workshop. Really excited about this one, as is Kelly, who says she hasn't been this excited since Mamma Mia. I hope you're excited about Mamma Mia, Kelly, and this isn't some kind of joke because you hate it. But yeah, we're really excited to talk about email marketing today. And we are very honored to have Super Abby with us. Abby?
Hi. Yeah, thank you for having me. Really excited. Yeah, currently heading up the email marketing department. I know it's been requested a few times. So yeah, I thought it was about time we did one for email marketing.
Awesome. Yeah, Abby's absolutely fantastic. She's a force of nature, as you all know. If you've worked with her or spoken to her or come across her in any form, then she's absolutely amazing. And she's heading up our email marketing department. I'm Tim, I'm Head Ninja, and I kind of built Exposure Ninja's email marketing system way back. So yeah, we're going to share some of the stuff that we do and some kind of principles and lessons that we've learned over the years. We're also going to answer some questions about email marketing. So we've had some really, really good questions all about how to increase subscriber count, email marketing platforms, email frequency, text versus HTML, list segmentation, broadcast versus automated streams, all this sorts of stuff. So there's loads and loads in here for us. We could probably go for 3 hours. Don't worry, we won't. But well, we might. But yeah, loads to get through. What we're not going to be doing today is the standard website and digital marketing reviews. So you're welcome to submit your site in the chat if you want us to add it to future website teardown sessions. Or if you're interested in us kind of brainstorming live some email marketing strategy, then you can put your site in the chat. If you're doing that from YouTube, then you'll have to remove one of the dots in the website address. So Tom has just submitted his site, watchlove.co.uk. Someone says, Tim, your cam quality is not great. Anybody else getting that? I mean, I literally couldn't spend any more on gear, so it might be worth refreshing the page if that's an issue. Yeah, so feel free to submit your site if you'd like us to brainstorm email marketing. But we've got loads of questions to go through, and we're also going to share the behind the scenes of the Exposure Ninja email marketing system, which is quite extraordinary. So I hope that you enjoy it, and I hope that you've got the stomach for it. Right, other people are saying bad quality. Oh, interesting. What's it like for you, Abby? Is the resolution all right? Is everything okay?
Yours is definitely not as clear as mine, so you are a little bit blurry.
Interesting. Okay. What I might try and do then is just turn it off a sec and then turn it back on. See if that makes a difference. Any better? Your face is saying no. All right, people.
Yeah, no, it's about the same.
All right. Okay. Well, do you know what? You don't need to see me today because it's all about email. The old switch on and off, exactly. So I just wanted to tell you a little story about email marketing and why we're so passionate about it here at Exposure Ninja. So I don't know if you know, but back in 2014, we went through a sticky patch. We've lost money once in our entire existence, and it was back in October 2014. We'd made a bunch of silly mistakes. We opened a physical office. We're remote, that's our DNA, but we opened a physical office because we thought we needed to. We filled it with a bunch of people. We had a sales team of 4 people, but calling it a sales team was a little bit generous because there wasn't a whole lot of sales going on. And whilst we had a kind of sales process in place, we didn't have very good follow-up because we're dealing with a lot of leads. That's one thing that we've always been blessed with at Exposure Ninja, is a lot of leads. And we were manually doing the follow-up, and it's very easy if you're in a service business, and you might know that it's very easy for leads to fall between the cracks. So we had to make some changes in the business. Long story short, I fired half the company in a single day, which was pretty much the worst day of my life. But the reason that email marketing played a big part in our survival is the sales team went from 4 people to 1 person, but we automated all of the sales follow-up. So we built a pipeline system, which I'll show you later, a pipeline system with automated responses and follow-ups at each stage of the pipeline. Our sales completely took off. the one person was able to sell more than the 4 combined, because not only did we have a clear sales process, but all of the automation and all of the follow-up stuff happening, without anybody intervening and without anybody having to keep track of leads manually, was a total game changer. So if you're in a service type business and you've got a sales process which involves sending out proposals or carrying out audits or that type of thing, the sales pipeline automation aspect of email marketing, I could not be a stronger advocate for. We have built our background, we have built the entire business on the back of this. So it's a really, really big thing for us. So that's why we're so passionate about it. Okay, people saying that the connection's still not great. So let me... yeah, okay. So that having said that, we've really got 2 types of email stuff that we send out to people. We've got the pipeline automation type stuff, and then we've got the broadcast stuff, which is the kind of newsletter type approach. So we can talk about each of these. And as we're going through, if you've got any questions about email marketing or anything that we're talking about, then just drop them in the chat window, and Abby and I will pick them up as we go. Okay, Abby, I'm going to fire some questions at you. You ready?
Yeah.
So the first question we've had is, well, quite a common one, came in a few different forms. How do I get more email marketing subscribers? I've got my web. I know that email marketing's good. I don't have very many people on my list, so it feels like a waste of time. How do I get more?
So the first thing you've got to think about is, and what a lot of people do, is they'll just slap a newsletter sign up form on the website and they'll go, there we go, people are going to start coming in. You need to make sure that there's some kind of incentive to get people to subscribe. So they're handing over an email address. They're essentially allowing you to contact them in their email inbox. So what can you give them, which is going to encourage them to sign up? So there's a couple of different methods that we use depending on the types of business that it is. If it's more of a service focused business like EN, then we recommend things like content. So useful guides, ebooks, free demos, free marketing reviews, free trials. Courses are a really good one to ask people to do. So get them onto a course where you'll share some of your guidance, some of your knowledge with them to get them to sign up. When it comes more to e-commerce, you can still link in things like guides. I know particularly I've worked a lot with Dolma, which is one of Liesel's company, and she sent out like a vegan guide. So basically vegan ingredients, what's included in the products. And I think that went really well to get more subscribers. Other things as well, discount codes is a really big one. So offering a discount code, 10% off your first order when you subscribe. There's that initial setup cost of giving the 10% discount, but then you've got that contact and you can keep emailing them, getting them to come and purchase again and again. And then there's other ones as well, which are things like social media competitions. These ones, they're really good to get subscribers, but you just have to bear in mind that they may not necessarily be interested in your product, just the competition. So it's important to tailor your emails then to suit that as well.
Yeah, great point. So what we're really saying here, it sounds like, Abby, is if you're just going in with sign up for the newsletter, that's not going to cut it. There needs to be a much greater incentive for someone to actually give you their email address. I think there's a misconception that if you just throw up a box on the site, people are just going to put it in because the email is, they're not having to pay anything. But I think we all get enough email. No one's desperate to get more email. So we really have to sell that a little bit harder, don't we, really?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the most common one that I see will be a newsletter sign up box. It'll be subscribe to receive updates. But I think we can all agree that no one's really incentivized to just get updates from a company. We need to sort of offer more. And I'd even avoid using the term newsletter as well, because it's got sort of connotations that people are going to get a lot of emails into their inbox, which they don't want. So you really need to be offering something more to it and really letting them know they're going to get a lot of use out of subscribing.
Cool. Good stuff. We've got some great questions coming through. Billeriki DC says, email subject, long versus short. What trigger words increase open rates? Great. So we'll cover that. Moya Gang says, how often do you recommend sending emails so people don't feel like spamming them? That's actually technically 2 questions. We'll answer both those, so that is great. Shreya says, how can a B2B company leverage email marketing to convert leads to clients? Shreya, the exposure ninja example that we'll show you on the screen later on will definitely help you there. Liesel says, do you think there is a big sign-up incentive between 10 and 15% discount? Liesel, the answer is to test. You can split test that on a pop-up. The data will show you. Okay, the next question people often have, Abby, best email marketing platforms. Any opinions on this? I mean, they all offer broadly similar functionality. Yeah. I guess some have different pipeline automation, CRM stuff in there as well.
I think depending on your business, so if you're quite new to email marketing, then MailChimp is one of the ones that integrates with nearly all CMS, all e-commerce systems. So I think that's one of the big ones on there, is using something that's going to integrate with your website so that you can easily move the data over between your contacts on the CMS and the email platform. Yeah, most of the ones I've used, they work very similarly. ActiveCampaign is another favorite of mine. It's more of a sort of higher up one, more of an advanced one, but it works really well if you're using things like Salesforce and Pipedrive. It works really well integrating with CRMs, especially, I know Shreya mentioned about B2B. A lot of the B2B clients that I work with use ActiveCampaign because it works really well to pull over lots of different data. It's got more complex automations. And yeah, the other one in there as well is cost. So the only real differences that I see is maybe a few more features around automation and the price differences. So yeah, if anyone, I get that question quite a lot as well when the sales team are discussing email marketing, is which one is the best. It really depends on your business, but most of them work pretty much the same.
Yeah, I think it's great you've mentioned ActiveCampaign. I think ActiveCampaign is probably one of the most feature-rich and maybe user-friendly ones to get started with the sort of complex automation, like different automations based on behavioral triggers. When someone visits a page, you can have different sequences trigger. If let's say that you're B2B and you've got a particular service, when someone visits that page, you can trigger an email sequence to them if they're a part of your list. You can integrate, text messaging really easily in there as well. You can integrate phone calls and direct mail. So some of these platforms offer loads and loads of additional functionality as well. A kind of word of warning on some of these, because I've been guilty of this as well. Sometimes when you get something like ActiveCampaign or Infusionsoft, which is so powerful, you go into the email system and you're like, great, I can do all these things. And you start building all these fancy automations because the functionality is there, not because you actually need it, not because your sales process kind of warrants that interaction at that stage. So when you're planning emails, I don't know if you'd agree with this, Abby, but when I'm planning emails, I always have to do it away from the software so that I don't get distracted by the fancy tech that I could text them a thing and get them to click on a personalized link, which would send to a personalized landing page. And then, hold on, I've just spent 2 days doing something which is utterly pointless. So I think it's always good to design outside and then build inside rather than get too stuck in.
Yeah, and start as well from one that I've worked on recently that's probably one of the more complicated ones that I've worked on is contacting closed leads. So people who have dropped off, they've not really gone through the initial sales process, they've gone a bit quiet. And it was then the automations included in there with things like checking they were still a closed lead, making sure that they haven't then called up. So then we removed them from the sequence, and then adding things in there like notifying the sales team when someone had clicked on a link. But all of that was done once we built the initial email content. So it's really important to not make it too complicated to start. Say, where do you want the journey to start? Where do you want it to end? And then if you need additional features, adding them in once you've done all that bit.
Yeah, cool. Which kind of leads us nicely onto our next question, which is how often should you email people? And I think Morrigan asked earlier, how often should you email people so people don't feel like spamming them? The reason I said that's 2 questions is because depending on the content of the email, a weekly email can feel like spam. 3 emails in a single day cannot feel like spam if you get the content right. So that's why I kind of said it feels like 2 questions. Spam is not just a function of frequency, it's also a function of the value that you're providing. And I think we can talk about this a little bit more. But when you get the frequency email, Abby, what's your kind of typical answer?
So there's no minimum or maximum. I think that whenever you're sending out emails, it should tie into other strategies that you're doing. So what are you doing on social? What are you doing in terms of blogs? I think Ian is a really great example that when we send out emails, it's because we've got some new content. It's because we've got something interesting to say. And I just feel like you shouldn't be emailing just for the sake of emailing, because it'll be really clear to your contacts that you're just emailing them to try and get whatever your CTA is, whatever your conversion goal is. So yeah, it's just making sure that you're only emailing when necessary, and always thinking about what the contact's going to want to read, instead of just emailing like, we're going to email 3 times a week. Okay, that's great, but only if you've got 3 interesting things to share that week that they're going to be interested in reading.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think this kind of leads into the sorts of topics that you can email, or that you should email people about. And certainly, this kind of leads into indoctrination sequence. What I might do is share the Exposure Ninja, or share some of the Exposure Ninja sequence with you now, and maybe some of the thinking behind it as well. Now I've got to be careful to make sure I don't share any of our, any personal data of subscribers. So I'm just going to figure out a way to do this. Right, I think this will work. So inside EN, we have 2 different types of email that go out. So you'll get 2 different types of email from us. The first are pipeline automation. So someone asked earlier about how do you get leads to close using email marketing. So we'll talk through that in just a minute. The other type of email that you get from us, though, is what's called an indoctrination sequence. An indoctrination sequence, it's a little, it's a little cynically titled. It's not my phrase, that's Frank Kern's phrase. But an indoctrination sequence is basically designed to educate your audience about the thing that you're selling. This is particularly relevant in B2B, where your customers may not know, they may not be experts in the thing that you're offering. So really helping people to understand what it is that you offer and giving them useful information is a really important sales tool. Now I'm going to share my screen. You're going to have to let me know, Abby, if is that really blurry for you? Can people see it?
No, it looks okay for me. I can read the titles of the emails as well. So
okay, cool.
It looks good.
We'll try and zoom in a bit anyway for you. But Julian's just asked, if a week goes by and there's nothing interesting to say, not that that should happen, is that okay? Yeah, I think, yes, it's okay. It's not like your people are going to completely forget about you existing because they didn't get an email from you. But obviously, you know the answer. A week shouldn't be going on with nothing happening. That's the real answer. Okay, so we've got these 2 things. We've got the indoctrination sequence, and then we've got the sales pipeline automation. When you come into the Exposure Ninja world, when you sign up for anything, you will go, if you click the GDPR box to say you're happy to get our emails, you will go into an indoctrination sequence. Now, you will go into a different sequence depending on how much budget you have for your marketing, okay? I'm telling you everything here. Because if you've got budget to become an Exposure Ninja client, we want to give you one sort of messaging. If you need help with your digital marketing and you're doing it yourself because you're a smaller business, well, we don't want to be trying to sell you Exposure Ninja because you're not ready for that yet. If we can give you free information and like help you do some of the stuff that, that will get your business to a place where you might be a client, then that's the most relevant thing for you. So we've got 2 different sequences. We've basically got a DIY sequence, which is for people that are doing their own digital marketing, and we can give you help and advice to do that. And then we've got a prospect sequence, which is for people that could be potential clients for Exposure Ninja based on their business size. So the messaging for each is slightly different. So just to kind of explain what we're looking at here, these little green boxes are little sequences, and a sequence is just a series of events. So in this case, the sequence is an email, then there's a delay for 2 days, then there's another email, then there's a delay for 3 days. Okay, so our whole indoctrination sequence is built up of dozens of these little mini sequences, if you like. Now, the reason that we're sending over, so let me just give you a bit of context and show you kind of how this is working. So each of these is basically a different type of asset. So each of those little sequences is a type of asset. So in this first case that we had, sorry, just reloading it for you. in this case, we've got an SEO webinar for people who are doing their own for people who are doing their own SEO. So we would send a couple of emails about this. If you click on the link to watch it, then you don't get the second email. But if you don't click on the link, we're going to send you another email and say, hey, just checking that you saw this webinar. And that's pretty much the pattern that we take throughout. So what we've actually got is we've got different assets here. These are the ones along the bottom lines. We've got a webinar about how to bootstrap your digital marketing. We've got a webinar about how to use Google Analytics. We've got some podcast episodes, highlights. We've got some content about why isn't your website making sales, about conversion rates. So you can see we've got all of these different topics, and we send out a little sequence about each of them. So every week, there'll be a new topic, which you'll get a couple of emails about. And like I say, if you click the link, if you click the link, so let's say that you got the let's say that you got the first email about that Google Analytics sequence, and you clicked on the link and you watched the videos, you wouldn't then get a reminder about it. So this is what's called behavioral targeting, where we will take you out of that sequence and move you on to the next sequence, because we don't want to constantly be bombarding you on something that you've actually clicked on. So you'll see a lot of that happening, and that's kind of how we go through. So that's the indoctrination sequence, and we've got two of those. We've got one which is for DIYers, and then one which is for prospects. You'll know I'm not showing you the content on the prospects because I happen to know that there's quite a lot of other agencies that watch this to see what we're doing. So yeah, keep your beaks out. So yeah, that's the indoctrination sequence. So that's the kind of automation thing that happens, and everyone goes through that. And what we're really trying to do here is establish ourselves as authorities. We're trying to share useful stuff, and we're trying to help people get results. At the end of the day, if you sign up for an Exposure Ninja review, we give you some tips which really help your business. That's really good for us, as well as being really good for you, because it builds the relationship and it builds the trust. The other type of email that you will get from us is this one. So with our free website and marketing review, we do a lot of them. And because we do a lot of them, we need to have automation that goes on to process them and to carry out the follow-up. So that's what this sequence is. And I'm apologizing with the horrendous complexity of this. It's really messy, but the principle is actually really simple. And flag if this is complete garbage, Abby, or if it's totally confusing. Basically, when you request, let me do this more generally. If you're processing leads and you're sending them through a sales process, you're going to have pipeline stages. Okay, so we've probably got 15 or 20 different pipeline stages which leads will pass through on their way to becoming an Exposure Ninja client. At each of these pipeline stages, we will trigger a follow-up sequence. So let's say, for example, when you request your marketing review from Exposure Ninja, your review will be categorized according to the answers that you give as a priority or a regular review. There will be a follow-up sequence which happens based on that priority, right? So this could be an email that says, hey, we've just seen your review come in. Thanks for requesting it. We'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. When one of the marketing consultants goes in and does your review, they will move your review out of review processing. They'll put it into review sent. This will trigger another sequence. So the first email in that sequence will be to send out your review with the recommendations that they've made. Then there'll be another follow-up which says, hey, just checking you got your review. There might be another follow-up after that which says, hey, it's been a few days and we haven't heard back from you about your review. Is there anything that you wanted to ask, or did you have any trouble getting hold of it? That type of thing. So every different pipeline stage in our process, there's a different automation going on. And then we have general kind of catch-all emails which will go out. Maybe if a lead is lost, like Abby says, if we haven't heard from someone, then they might get an email from me after a month or 2 months just that says, hey, just checking in to see how things are going. So that's how a B2B company who's processing leads can use this stuff to improve your conversion rate, because it means your sales team can just focus on talking to clients. It's automating the stuff which is happening every time, so you can manually focus on the stuff which is, that needs that kind of manual intervention. So I'm going to pause for breath. Abby, is there anything that you would add, question or clarify?
No, it all looks really good. When you look at, and whenever you set up sequences like this or automations on any email platform, it always looks quite complex. I think my best advice, if you did want to do something like this, is to start off on an Excel or a Google sheet and just plan out like, what is the journey that each of your potential customers is going to go through? What do you want to say to them at each stage? And then it makes a lot more sense then, because that does look quite complicated. But when you know the EN process, it makes a lot more sense. So yeah, I just going back to planning it away from the platform. Don't try and plan out your sales process directly on Infusionsoft. Actually plan it out on like a document first, and then start building it from there.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And it's, when you look at this has been iterated over years and years and years. So it's you don't need to build something horrendously complex to get started. You know, to begin with, you might just send an automatic email to someone when they fill in the contact form on your website, for example. You know, we used to do this back in the day with the tradespeople. When they fill in the form on the website, we just immediately bounce back an email that says, hey, thanks for requesting some information. I might be out on the job at the moment. If you want to give me a call, here's my mobile number if it's urgent. You know, something really simple like that. It's technically an automation. It doesn't have to be complex at all. And it's just a way of kind of starting to automate. And then what you'll do is you might just put different automations in over time. You notice that you want to follow up your prospects who've had a proposal from you after a week or something, and you might just build in something like that. So it kind of happens over time as well. It doesn't have to be like, you don't need to spend 6 months building out something horrendously complex and then press go on everything at the same time. It's the sort of thing that you can iterate.
And just to add as well, just quickly, the last one on that, around the question around emailing, how often to email, think about your automations as well. So if you're adding someone to your email subscribe list, but they're also going through like a process like that sales process, then that is when it could become a little bit spammy. If they're getting emails about sales, then they're also getting your newsletters. They're also on another sequence. So just bear that in mind when you are setting it up. How many emails in total are they receiving from you, not just the different categories?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think there's another nuance here, which leads us into another question that we've had quite a few times, which is what sort of thing should we actually be emailing people about? Once we've got someone on our list and we've incentivized them to come on our list, even if they're a prospect, hopefully you've noticed, if you're in the Exposure Ninja world, we don't ever pitch too hard in the emails. We never really just send out purely promotional emails. There will always be some form of value. It'll always be, here's a video, or here's how this business did X, right? So a lot of companies will say, hey, check out our case studies. Well, the trouble with sending out a case study is it's boring as hell. Like, no one cares about case studies generally unless they're really, really qualified. But you'll notice with us, when we have a case study, we'll say how this lead generation business went from 35 leads a month to 400 a day, right? But that's a case study, but we turn it into a tutorial. But of course, the tutorial piece is that we've worked with them and here's the strategies that we've used. So I think there's a nuance there. Just because someone is in your sales pipeline doesn't mean you need to be, pitchy, and you can still retain that kind of value add. If you just think that, just take the pressure off yourself and then think that we're not aiming to convert every single person. We're just aiming to make every single person fall in love with us a little bit more. I think that's a much more productive mindset to take with the emails than, imagining converting people. Because if you can make them fall in love with the stuff that you're doing, they'll convert anyway. And it just kind of happens. Abby, what else? What should we be emailing about? What do you say?
So emailing, just mainly focus on what they're going to be interested in reading. So like you said about the case studies, that someone's not going to be interested in you saying, look at our latest case study. How is that going to benefit them? So if you think about people receiving hundreds of emails every day, I know I personally receive hundreds of emails every single day. What is going to stand out in there? I think it's one of the things that you actually use is it going to make me happier, sexier, or more money? I think that's one that you use quite often, is like, how is your content going to do that for them? What is it you need to stand out and get them to take time out of their day to read your email? So if you're just promoting that you've got a sale and they're not interested in actually purchasing from you right now, then they're automatically not going to read the email. So it's really about focusing on useful content that's going to keep them engaged with the brand, but also still linking at the end, like we do with EN, your main CTA as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Someone asked about deliverability, and one of the things I would suggest is, I think someone else also asked about subject lines. So I just want to share. I actually made a presentation a little while back with some subject lines on. We looked through our top performing subject lines at Exposure Ninja, and this is something that can also help with deliverability. Let me just share them. So I don't know if you can see these. These are our top performing subject lines by open rate. And let me know in the comments, what do you notice about all of these? I don't know if you can see them. Let me see if I can zoom in. I don't know. What do you notice about these subject lines? I know we're on a bit of a delay, so it takes a while for you to see what we're recording, and then it takes a while for people to comment. So what I'm expecting you'll type in the comments box is that they arouse curiosity. And you'll notice that, yeah, strong CTA, they arouse curiosity, and some of them are pretty difficult to ignore. For example, asking for your advice. As a subject line, that's pretty difficult to ignore. Short, yep, they're short. We don't always use short email. We don't always use short subject lines, but we do often use short. Now, if you compare it to stuff like this, so this is a lot of the stuff that ends up in promotions tab. And I know we sometimes end up in promotions tab as well, but you know, 6 Restaurant, which by the way, amazing at the top of Trent Bridge, if you can go, but they're sending out this garbage. We are award winners, right? Like Abby said, who cares? We think that people are reading our emails in this sort of state, right? They're spending all of their time, they're dedicating all of their time to reading our emails, when actually what's happening is this: they're in pure deletion mode. They're on their phones while they're watching TV or while they're on the toilet. So if we're going to cut through that, we have to either arouse their curiosity, or we have to imply that there's an advantage, a benefit for them, which makes them happier, healthier, sexier, or wealthier. So yeah, I think going for things that are a little bit difficult to ignore, you'll increase your open rate if you have a catchy headline. You can also increase your open rate and your deliverability if you get responses from people. So you'll notice that some of the emails that we send out from Exposure Ninja, particularly in the pipeline automation, will just be questions like, hey, it's Tim here, just checking in to see how you're doing. I challenge you to ignore that. That's really difficult to ignore. That's an automated email, but it doesn't feel like an automated email. People think that when they send out an automated email, they need to go into newsletter mode and they need to write in this corporate way. But actually, the best approach is to just imagine that you're writing to a single person. What would you say to that single person? When you get an email from one of your friends, you don't ignore it, because they're not saying, welcome to this episode of the newsletter. As soon as anybody says that, they're dead, right? You're never going to reply to that. Whereas if you say, hey, just checking in to see how you're doing, I saw this, thought it might be really relevant for your business. It's pretty difficult to ignore that. And if you do that over time, you're educating people's Gmail inboxes that this is an email that they want to interact with. So you're more likely to hit the primary tab, and you're more likely to increase your deliverability. So I don't know if that's useful. But yeah, just some thoughts on the sort of topics and how to trigger people. Okay. We also had a question about sending broadcasts versus doing pre-written streams. You touched on this a little bit earlier, Abby, about, or maybe it was before we recorded. Firstly, what is a broadcast? What is a pre-written stream? And when do we use each one?
So a pre-written stream is a customer journey. So that's similar to what you just showed us on Infusionsoft for EN. So a pre-written stream is a sequence that all contacts that fit a certain criteria will go through that sequence. They may go off in different directions depending on the actions that they take, but it's typically something that's timeless and develops that relationship with the contact. So it's that indoctrination sequence. The broadcast emails are those ones that tie in with your content strategy, they tie in with events and that useful content that's basically like emailing a friend to say, hey, I saw this, I thought it'd be really good for your business. I thought you'd like to know about this information. So the broadcasts are they're the ones that you send out when you have content which is useful to send to your subscribers, whereas the sequences are those relationship building emails that contacts go through to become either a paid customer, a different type of customer, or just to build the relationship and keep them engaged with the brand.
Yeah, that's a really good shout. And a lot of when we showed you the indoctrination sequence in Exposure Ninja, almost all of the emails that are in that were broadcast at some point. And, you know, we put together a new video or something that was really popular, got a great response. So we then put it in our sequence so that everyone gets it at a certain point through their life cycle. Tom says, these are great. Does that apply to B2B? Yes, Tom. I think one of the misconceptions is that we need to take a massively different approach, B2B, B2C, because we're all, whatever you're selling to a person. You're never actually selling to a company. There's a person who's making the decision. There's a person whose email inbox you're going to. And I think it's important to treat that business that you're selling to as a person. So for example, us, it's marketing managers. What does that marketing manager need to make them healthier, happier, sexier, wealthier, right? That's the filter that we're putting it through. We don't care whether it's, you know, whether we're selling hair bands or, you know, industrial machinery. It really doesn't matter. People are making decisions based on moving themselves towards their goals. So that's what all of our email has to keep in mind. And we can take exactly the same approach with all of it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think when it comes to like B2B, I think it's even more important because a lot of people still do follow the sort of more formal business approach. So to like stand out against competitors, when you're writing to someone's work email address, you really want to have that edge and stand out and make them stop. And in the sea of their emails they're likely getting every day, it's really important to stand out even more when it's B2B.
Yeah, that's a great shout. Liesel's asked, would it be more useful to develop good pre-writtens over time and rely less on broadcasts, especially if we don't have regular new products? What are your thoughts, Amy?
Yeah, so I think that's how I recommend it. So if you have a particular sequence that you want to put contacts through, then set that up and then just let that go. If you then send out broadcasts, which are getting really good engagement, and then you add them to the sequences, then that's a really good shout as well. I think as long as the emails are timeless, I know in e-commerce, if you're launching new products or if it's something that's very time specific, then you just want to avoid putting that into sequences because it means they become out of date. You have to go in and review them quite a lot. But yeah, it's all just about testing, seeing what you get the most engagement from. And when you do set up the pre-written sequences, going back in, seeing what the results are looking like and just making sure that it's just getting what you need from it as well. So it's really great to set them all up and have lots of complicated sequences and keep adding to them, but just keep going back and reviewing it, make sure that it's still working as well as you want it to and adjust as needed.
Yeah, that is great advice to go and review. Yeah, I think we have a habit of, because ours is so in depth, we review it like once every 3 or 4 years. And the downside of that is that, you know, someone who comes in 2022 is seeing an email that was last written in 2017, which may or may not be in date. I think there's another point with that, Liesel, which is thinking about the education journey that your customers will go through. So for those who don't know, Liesel's business is vegan perfumes. And there's an education piece here, which is around how kind of training the customer to see the value in Dolma over competitors and all that type of stuff. So like Abby said, I would think about what objections do you have to overcome in the buyer's mind in sequential order, and that's the stuff we'd put into an automated sequence. Then the broadcast, you still want to do broadcasts because you know, you will have updates, you will have things that happen in the business, that you will have time sensitive stuff. And you want to, you know, you do kind of want to have a mixture of those. The great thing about time sensitive stuff and broadcast, for example, is we can get people on a live. So you'll notice that we broadcast every week about these lives, but we also have the kind of automated stuff which goes on, which takes people along a journey that we've designed. So I can see there being sort of different intent there as well. And yeah, you might want to design that kind of experience for people. Right, Touchlight says, I missed the beginning. Have you mentioned how to increase open rates through specific well-targeted subject lines? Yeah, you missed it like a few seconds ago. Here's the gist, right? If you can send subject lines that trigger curiosity, if you want to increase your open rates, two things have to happen. Firstly, you have to incentivize people to click on your email in the first place. If you imagine your inbox, it looks like a Twitter feed now. People are not going through, a lot of people have given up with inbox zero, for example, or the promotions tab is filtering. Promotions and social are filtering 90% of their emails. So you have to get through the first few times, and you have to get their interaction somehow to educate the platform that they want to see your emails. So something catchy, hooky, that's difficult to ignore. So we've used things like, my favorite one, which got a really good response, was please don't lie to my wife, right? It's really difficult not to click on that. Particularly if you're a guy, you immediately start going through your head. You're like, oh crap, you know, what's happened? It is that kind of thing. Once you can get people to react and respond to these things, then you know, you start to educate that person, but you also start to educate their email service, whether that's Gmail or whatever, that this isn't the sort of thing that that person ignores. So therefore it needs to go into primary, and it may even have a little star. Cool. Where is the best source for marketing related? Oh, this is a good question. Someone actually asked earlier as well. Can you just buy email lists? Can you still buy cold email lists that don't cost the earth? Okay, Mike, you can get emails very cheaply. Experience sells email lists. Your deliverability will be dreadful. Your open rate will be catastrophic. Spam complaints will be through the roof. And that's not because the email service is rubbish. It's because they're cold. They've got no relationship with you at all. So where possible, unless you're using email as mass cold outreach, which is it is a strategy, but you're going to have to choose you're going to have to choose an email platform that is okay with you doing that. Most of them aren't. Most of them want you to have opted in contacts. So we'd typically go for an approach which is like, you're generating leads through having high ranking blog content with call to action boxes, offering, you know, guides or ebooks. We answered this right at the start of the session, so it might be worth going to check that out. Like, how do you get more email subscribers? I'd probably, if you can, go through that approach, because you'll have a much higher engagement rate, and you won't have to sell people on, oh, why are you even in my inbox in the first place, which is a real objection. Like, just because we can get in someone's inbox doesn't mean they're going to read it, right? There has to be a relationship with them there. If you think about how you're reading your emails, when's the last time you responded to a mass broadcast from somebody that you didn't know? Moya says, is it not against GDPR to send emails to people who did not sign up? I'm not going to give you any GDPR advice, but legitimate interest, and also if they're business contacts, if there's no personal detail, you can still buy lists from people like Experian, as long as you're not getting like personally identifiable information, and it's business contacts, then there's lots of people that are still doing that. Manon says, I hope I ran out of characters. Right, let's get this in. What are we seeing here? My clients have a short window of time. What do I do when they've been in my mailing list and they haven't booked? Do I keep creating new content, or do I move them to a dormant mailing list instead? Manon, while we're answering that question more generally, can you tell us what you're doing, what specifically you're selling people, and what they're coming in for as well? Abby, what are you thinking here between putting people in dormant and just kind of, you know?
I think, yeah, it's really important to separate contacts depending on where they are in the buying journey. The fact that they've expressed interest in your business means that I wouldn't just disregard them altogether. But it's really important, if they're out of that window of potentially converting, they're less likely to open the emails, that you do focus on people who are actively in that stage. So I wouldn't call it a dormant mailing list, maybe just a different type of stage. So maybe they're sort of more in that like closed lead stage. So you still want to try and get in touch with them for a certain period of time to see if they are still interested. But yeah, just reading now the comment that you're a wedding photographer. So yeah, if they've booked another wedding photographer, then it is likely that they may not come back for another one, but it may be worth still contacting them in the future, seeing if there's anything else they're interested in. But yeah, focus on those active leads over just emailing for the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, divorce rates aren't insignificant, so it's probably still worth dropping them a line every so often. But I mean, the other thing I would consider is whether if you can get people's wedding date and you can create a sequence which is actually you mentioned that you've got wedding tips. What you might be able to do is build a wedding planning sequence, right? So put your email address in here. Let us know what date your wedding is, if you've got one, or even if it's just a month. And what we'll do is we'll send you the things that you might be wanting to consider at each stage of the process. So, I mean, it tells you two things. It tells you when they're getting married, so possibly how qualified they are, and that allows you to flag the ones that have put like next week. So you're like, okay, great, this is a decent lead. But the other thing it might allow you to do is if you've got a lot of time midweek, which my perception of wedding photographers is completely inaccurate because I'm imagining that editing time is 0, but you've got gigs at the weekend and then you might have time Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I wonder if you could ping them for like a 1-year anniversary photo shoot a year after the date, and that's something that you could automate. So I would by building a sequence, you turn signing up for something into a massive value add, don't you? Because you're like, look, I've worked with loads of brides and grooms over the years. I've got you. If you're completely overwhelmed, if you're totally confused, just relax, just put your date in here. We're going to tell you everything that you need to do, and you can automate that entire thing. So you could send them photo ideas for each stage. Boom, yes, and get them on the engagement shoots as well. Cool. Good stuff. Great question. Right, let's get back to our list. We've still got a fair chunk of stuff to get through. If anybody has any questions about email marketing, drop them in the chat. Even if we've covered it already, then we can point you to the right place in the video. Right, getting stuck in promotions tab. We've kind of covered that. List segmentation, we've kind of covered that. Maybe we could talk a little bit about some of the automations that we can do around e-commerce, Abby, and things like basket abandonment, follow-up purchases, and that type of thing. What sort of automation options are there for our e-commerce viewers?
So there's quite a lot of different ones available. You've got your abandoned baskets, which will send out an email after a certain period of time that somebody has abandoned a purchase on the website. I've seen a lot as well, and I recommend a lot doing sequences around this. So similar to what you were doing with the EN one, telling them about that content, and then if they don't then click and purchase, reminding them about that. People then go and put the discount codes and things within there to incentivize people coming back. Other ones that are sometimes maybe missed a bit are the order update emails. So I think once someone's made a purchase, a lot of people, especially you've got sort of the lower priced items where people maybe purchase more impulsively, is that they'll make a purchase and they've done that really easily. But then what happens afterwards really depends on whether or not they come back as a customer. So how often do you update them? Do you let them know the order's been shipped? Do you let them know about tracking? And how do you speak within those emails as well? So it's really important that even when you're just writing the text about your order's been dispatched, it's keeping that same tone of voice, still being really friendly and making it really easy for them to know exactly where they are on their order delivery. Other ones as well are review emails. So when someone's had a delivery, I'm sure everyone's received a lot of these. I think Amazon send them out. I think they send you about 5 or 6. Just keep asking you to leave a review. Review emails to try and get people to come back and leave a review if they've had a good experience, which is really, really useful for building up that social proof and that credibility. And then more recently, in the last few years, it's become a lot easier to do things like tailored remarketing. So these are things that you can do within MailChimp where you can add an extra plugin. And then depending on what the customer looks at on the website, you can then create automated emails that focus on products that they've looked at. It's quite a complex one to do. But that's the sort of automated emails that I've seen going out.
Yeah, I think that's a great shout. That's the Amazon approach, isn't it? With Amazon, you don't get, you never get, hi, this is Jeff. I thought you might be interested in checking out this new range of baby blankets, right? It's always related to your products and your search history. So that's kind of the ultimate for product targeting with e-commerce. Yeah. What you might also want to do is make sure that you're covering the story side of things. So people have a reason to buy from you. Moya said, what value can you send if you run an online store and you are not a service provider? That's a great question. This is where it helps to have a store in a particular segment. Okay, you know, we love Gymshark here at Exposure Ninja, or we love their marketing, and they're an example of a store business, but really they've moved themselves into a fitness and kind of lifestyle brand, and they've done that through sharing information about workout tips or fitness tips or interviews with people or videos about behind the scenes or whatever it is there. So I think it doesn't really matter what you're selling. The point is to identify the goal that the customer has in your head, the goal in their head, the thing that they're trying to move towards, right? So we often think of this as a line. Your customer is, let me get this right. Right, it's backwards, right? So your customer is here, they want to get there, and there's a journey that they have to go to get there. Now, your products are going to help them get to their goal, but there's also information, there's also stories, there's advice, there's buyer's guides or whatever that's also going to help them get towards that goal. So, you know, whatever you're selling, you're helping people get towards a goal, and that's the information that you'll be sharing. Right. I also want to share this because I've gone and butchered the comment. I think I ran out of characters. But what we decided to do, we wanted to give people help with their email marketing because we realized that everything is it's going to be reliant on your business and your particular situation. So whilst we can give very general advice about here are some of the considerations to make and here are some of the, I guess, frameworks that you can use, it's really useful to get specific recommendations for your business. So what we've decided to do, we built this in the 3.5 minutes before we went live. So apologies for the web design on it. But there's a little form that you can fill in. I've dropped the URL in the comments, so I think you can see it in YouTube and Facebook. I'm not sure about LinkedIn. You might have to go and check our YouTube channel for the link. But there's the link if you want to write it out in your browser window. But anyway, when you go to that, what you'll see is a form which asks you a bit of information about your business and what you're currently doing with your email marketing. When you fill this in, we'll conduct an email marketing audit. Depending on how many we get, depends on how quickly you'll get the response. But we'll conduct an audit of your email marketing. So if you've got stuff in place, we're happy to have a look at it and see what you're doing and see what could be improved. If you don't have stuff in place, then we're happy to advise. And of course, if you want to work with us, then you'll be working with Abby, which, it's the Futurama thing, isn't it? Take my money. Like, you'll be working with Abby on this stuff, so I can definitely recommend it. So fill in that form and request a free review of your email marketing. You can do this even if you've had a website and marketing review from us. This is a separate thing in kind of addition to that. So yes, okay, great. Abby, there's a whole bunch of pitfalls that people fall into. We've got 8 minutes between us. Should we try and smash through as many of these as we can?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Right. First one. I'll take first one. You want to take the second one?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So first pitfall to avoid is expecting people to read every single email. So someone sent me their email sequence for a launch that they were running last week, and it was great. The email was personal. It sounded like it came from a person. They'd nailed their target audience. All of that was great. They had a 1-week launch sequence. Then they had a period where the product was actually launched. The product was live. People could buy it. And then they had the engagement sequence for once people had signed up. It was a training course. And it was great, but what they had done is they'd built the sequence to be entirely sequential. They'd imagined that someone is going to read each email in turn, come to the logical conclusion, read one of the 2 launch emails and sign up. And I had to say to them, you've got to write every email as if somebody has never read any of the others, because as soon as you make them dependent, you're going to lose them, right? Even if they did read your previous email, chances are they didn't read it all the way through. Chances are they didn't fully understand it. So every email that you write has to work in isolation. It can be part of a sequence, that's absolutely fine, but it can't assume any prior knowledge. So yeah, make sure you do that. And yeah, I can't think of a better way to say it than that. Abby, next pitfall to avoid.
Emailing too infrequently. So although people think often that emailing too much is a problem, emailing not enough is also quite a common problem. So we had one launch sequence for a health coaching business. They had a couple of emails going out when the launch was live, huge build up, then a couple of notification emails. So with things like this, you may want to do 2 or 3 per day if you're getting conversions, but it really is about what is working well. So if your emails are going really well, don't go, oh no, we said we're only going to do 1 or 2 a week. No, really go for it and just maximize what you can get when big things are happening.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Make hay while the sun is shining. If you're still getting conversions, if you're still getting clicks through, keep going. Yes, you're going to get unsubscribes. The only way to avoid getting unsubscribes is
don't email.
Not to email at all, right? So you're going to get, if you're getting conversions, if people are interacting, if people are responding, if anyone's responding positively, keep going. Don't worry too much about scorching your list until you see your open rate really start to drop. Yeah, okay. Next pitfall is the opposite of that. So emailing too often, or when it's not necessary, just for the sake of sending out another email. You have to have something to say. I think Julian asked a great question earlier. Is it okay if we don't talk to them for a week? Yes, if you don't have anything to say, don't just say, hey, here I am, just reminding you that I'm here. Garbage. So yeah, make sure you remember you're only 1 email away from someone just tuning out from you. So make sure that every time you're adding some value, and make sure, it's a little bit like with social media. With social media, we used to say to people, imagine that people were subscribing to your social channels and they were paying to do so. So if you imagine that your audience is paying to subscribe to your emails, that sets a benchmark for what you would actually send out. Because if you're paying to subscribe, you're not going to send out an email that's like, buy our thing now. Well, that's really low value anyway, unless they're really qualified, unless you've built up loads and loads of trust with them. It's the Gary V jab, 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 right hook thing. Unless you've built that equity with them, then just pitching them and kind of hammering them is really not going to help. So yeah, think about is this email warranted? But of course, you want to be making so much content that you have to email them at least every week.
Cool. Next, we kind of touched on this being devastated when you get unsubscribes. So as we just said, the only way you're not going to get unsubscribes is if you don't email at all. And yeah, be valuable rather than purely self-promotional. So we wouldn't send out an email sort of saying we're the best company in the whole world. You want to come over to us? Really try and tailor it so that it's still interesting content and that it's still valuable to the reader. So are they going to get value out of this email? If not, then I'd probably rethink sending it, or
Yeah. Good shout. Right, we've got 4 minutes left. Let's just skip to the last one. Not optimizing your email content. So Abby, let's talk about this, because we've talked a little bit about email subject lines. We haven't really talked about email body copy too much. What are your top tips around how we structure the content, not what we're sending and what we're writing about, but actually what's in the body copy itself?
So the first and most important one is to just always make sure that you're testing different content. So don't just test all the time. Avoid spam trigger words, and these grow all of the time. That it used to just be things like sale and marketing, things like that crop up, but then it also be other ones I can't think of off the top of my head, but there's also random ones that get included in there. So I'll try and find a document that recommends the best list, but avoid spam trigger words. Write as if you're speaking to a friend. So just write as if you were sending a friend an email, letting them know, I saw this really awesome thing on this website, thought you'd love to read it. Write in that way. Don't write as if you're speaking to an audience of 100 people. Write as if you're speaking directly to one person. Avoid spammy formatting. So things like emojis, exclamations, overly designed emails. It's great to add images and add design in there, but just test it and try sending out emails with less design. If it works better and you get more conversions, then sometimes it's better to maybe lose some of that branding. We all have lovely looking websites, but if you're getting more conversions from a less designed email, then that's definitely the way forward. And the last one is focus on engagement before conversion. So a lot of what we've mentioned already today, just focus on that valuable content, get an engagement from the contacts, rather than just focusing on promotions and conversions all the time. It's about building the relationship with the client through emails rather than just hitting them with that promotional blast all the time.
Yeah, so that's a great shout. We haven't talked on HTML versus plain text type style, and you kind of touched on it there. it's the age-old debate, right? Everyone wants to send out beautifully designed emails that kind of look like websites, and sometimes that's right. If the business doesn't have a kind of human face, then sometimes that works. It would be really weird, for example, if we got an Amazon email from Jeff Bezos and he was like, "Hey Abby, I saw this great dog jumper that I thought you might really like." Like, that would be super weird. So we know that's not right for them. But for a lot of us who are running smaller businesses, or we're running businesses that have a distinct personality, or we want it to have a distinct personality, I think it can be tempting to think we need to make it look professional. Whereas actually, as soon as you start adding HTML, as soon as you start adding images and stuff into your emails, the promotions tab, oh, hello, the sensor starts perking up. Oh, hello, what's going on here? Because that doesn't look like the sort of personal communication that makes it into your primary inbox. So I would, I'd consider carefully that decision between plain text and HTML, because HTML fancy design is not necessarily the best way. We're Exposure Ninja. We've got designers and developers. We could design lovely looking emails. Everything you get from us looks like a personal email that we've sent you, and that is 100% by design. We would not have it any other way. Okay, Manon apparently wants to be us when she grows up. I don't know what to make of that. Are you calling us old, Manon?
Yeah, that's what I thought. How old are we?
Or maybe just mature. I don't know. I wouldn't consider myself either, but there we go. Okay. We've reached the 1 hour limit. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you so much, Abby, for joining us. It's been amazing.
Thank you for having me. And thank you everyone for all your amazing questions. Yeah, it's been really good. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, really good questions. Lots and lots of engagement. Remember, fill in your review for she's calling you cool. Okay, that's okay. Thanks for clarification, Sarah. Fill in your email marketing review form as well, and we can take a look at your email campaigns. You can find it in the YouTube channel comments, and we'll figure out a way to pin it somehow or put it in the description. Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. We're going to be back next week. Not sure on the topic yet. If you've got any ideas, let us know. And then the week after, we're going to have a break because I'm moving house. And then we might be back the week after that, depending on how quickly we can get broadband installed. But very, very much thank you for everyone coming in and giving us lots of great questions. See you next week.
Thanks.